He said his name was Jeff Turner, and he conned this woman out of money, relationship, all that. And he freely admitted it. And so his picture was on the cover of the paper. Oh my gosh. It was such that was one of the more amazing stories I've ever worked on, where he just freely admitted it. He did not deny it. He just basically said, yeah, I'm a sleaze bag. Like, I'm just not, like, shoot me, shoot me. Like, yeah, I lied. And I had to talk to Jeff Turner, who was like, and then because they got NBA security involved. Yeah.
Celtics Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to a new Celtics Beat. Great to be back here with you. Great to have you here with us. Apologies, I guess, just to start things off. I know we did not have a show last week. We let it kind of bleed into today, so we'll make up for it. We'll give you a couple this week. It's just been chaos, absolute chaos, not only in just the sports world entirely, with a whole bunch of college basketball. I hope people are out there watching and just getting yourselves ready for the intensity of March Madness a month and change from now, but also the Super Bowl. It is Super Bowl week. We've got Gary Washburn here with us from the Boston Globe. We'll get his thoughts on the Super Bowl in a little bit as well, but primarily we'll be talking NBA and, of course, our beloved Celtics. The C's, they still have not lost consecutive games going all the way back to very early November. They are coming off a absolute thrashing of Marcus Smart's Memphis Grizzlies, although Smart was not part of that. He was there, he was watching, he was honored by the team as a hero among us there at the Garden in his return to Boston. But without him on the floor, among other key pieces, that Memphis team lost by roughly 40 points to the Celtics. Absolute domination. Sometimes you have to laugh when you see a spread that's like minus 19.5 and say, I got to take the dog. They're going to keep it close. Nope. Doubled it up. Celtics had their way with the Grizz. Gary, good to have you back here with us. Of course, you know Gary Washburn, not only from the Globe, but from his podcast, the Big Three podcast, formerly known as the
podcast.
Yes, the A-List podcast. See, I'm training myself on what it is now versus what it was before with Sherrod and with Kwani. And so Gary, it's great to have you here, as mentioned. How are you? How you been? We haven't talked to you in a couple months.
Oh, everything's good. Yeah, I'm good. I mean, obviously, the season's kicking in, like 32 games left in the regular season. So we're way over the halfway point. So it's starting to get to that stretch run. And I think once the All-Star break passes in a couple of weeks, I think we'll definitely be in that stretch run. But just it's been an interesting, fascinating season so far. A lot's gone on, and a lot I'm sure will go on over the next 4 to 5 months.
Well, as you said, we're in the thick of it. You mentioned All-Star, obviously All-Star festivities, weekend game, all of it. It's not that far away, but All-Star roster announcements have come out. Like, we know Jason Tatum is starting. We know Jaylen Brown was named, to the roster as a reserve. We figure a couple of guys are probably going to end up not playing, not participating on account of injuries. And so, could Kristaps Porzingis wind up there? Could Derek White wind up there? I've heard some people say, could they both wind up there? So it becomes a question of how many C's could participate in All-Star, but also we're only a few days away from the NBA trade deadline on Thursday, and that has been a date that many Celtics fans have had circled on the calendar, just in terms of seeing how Brad Stevens can look to improve an already elite championship contending team. So let's start right there before we sort of reflect upon Marcus Smart's return to Boston and how this team is playing and all of those other good things that obviously we'll get to. What are your expectations on Thursday in terms of whether this team will make a move? And I know you've written very recently about, 10 notable guys, including old friend Kelly Olynyk, who could be on the trade block, and a couple of guys who maybe would be a logical fit here in Boston. Do you expect the C's to make a move? And if so, how monumental?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't expect monumental. They just don't have the salary, or unless you're ready to part with a really quality player. So if you look at the salaries, Peyton Pritchard makes $7 million, I want to say, and so he would be the most tradable asset. But I don't think they want to move him. And then you can pair a bunch of the minimum guys together and try to get, like I say, you wanted to get Kelly Olynyk Would you want to trade 3 players for Kelly? Is that going to really help your team, including a Peyton Pritchard? That would be, or someone of that ilk in terms of the salary, because there's a high and low with the Celtics salary. Everybody makes big money except when it goes down to Peyton, and then you talk about the lower guys. Al makes 10. Like, you want to trade Al for Kelly Olynyk? You could probably put in Lamar Stevens or something. I mean, these are things that are probably not going to happen. So if you're the Celtics, you're looking at a guy like Andre Drummond. I think they should go after Sadiq Bey. Younger, in the final year of his deal. Who knows what the hell Atlanta is doing at this point? Would they take a couple of second round picks in addition to that Grant Williams trade exception for Sadiq Bey? What would it take for the Hawks to get off Sadiq Bey's contract if they don't think they're going to re-sign him? And I'm not sure if they are. Obviously, he's a free agent. Do they just want any kind of compensation? Or are they going to say, no, we know how desperate you are to win a title. We want a first round pick. And then you're not going to trade a first round pick for an expiring contract unless you certain Sadiq Bey's part of your future and you think you can re-sign him. So therein goes thinking over the next 72 hours in that situation. So, or an Andre Drummond who's making, I think, $3 million the league minimum, would he add something to your team? And then because you think, well, in the big man category, Porzingis, you want to keep him on ice and make sure he's healthy and fresh for the season, for the postseason. You want Al Horford. You don't want to wear Al out. I think Al got really worn out at the end of the postseason last year. Look at his numbers. He just was not the same guy. Then you got the Luke Cornett experience. How much of that do you want? And obviously the rotation's tight in the playoffs, but how much do you want? And then but Kata's not on an NBA deal. He's not eligible for the playoffs unless the Celtics were to transfer his contract to a standard NBA deal, which I think would happen if, let's say, they had an open roster after the trade deadline. If they said, you know what, we just need his depth, we need that extra body. And he's provided some quality minutes over the last couple of months. I mean, he's had his moments. He's still raw. So it all depends. Would Drummond kind of fill that third center role? Would he come here and pout because he wants to play? What would be his attitude? I think Brad Stevens, has said it before. He's going to bring in the right chemistry guy. I mean, I just remember the years when it was Keith Bogans and it was a bunch of guys who just did not want to be in Boston. And Brad learned from that experience and said, I don't want to bring in guys who don't want to be here. You want somewhat this year's version of Blake Griffin. You want someone who's going to be a team guy, maybe not as long in the tooth as Blake was, but someone who can be a useful player when he's on the floor, but a positive influence when he's off the floor and not playing. And that's a careful situation because when you get buyout guys, they want minutes. They're not going to join your team to sit on the bench. Now, the whole lure of chasing the championship is definitely encouraging for some guys. So Sadiq Bey might be like, hey, I'll give you whatever you need. I haven't gotten close to the finals yet. I just want to be part of it. Or you could have guys who come in and say, hey, I thought I was getting 15, 20 minutes a game. What's going on here? Then you can see their negativity they're having on guys, the influence they're having on guys like a Jordan Walsh. And I'm saying Jordan's going to contribute, but you don't want them to be a negative influence or a cancer, which is a little strong, but a guy who's just going to come in there and be like, yeah, this ain't what I thought, man. Whatever happens with this team I'm ready for next year. So that's a very careful decision over 72 hours. And I think what's going to happen is a lot of things will develop on Thursday when teams, are okay, now here's the deadline. Now there's a lot of talk. Things will happen on Thursday. So I do think the Celtics will make a minor move, try to get a big in or get a swingman, a wing, a guy who can shoot threes. I think the O'Shea Brissett experience has not worked as well as I thought we all thought it might, where he was going to be kind of knocking down threes and he was going to be running the floor. I think defensively and rebounding he's been fine. Offensively, he's a liability, I would say, in terms of his shooting. So if you could get an upgrade in that position, that might help too.
I'll let Ev follow up on some of the guys like Bay and others that you mentioned that obviously make more sense or more logical or more likely than this one. But you did allude to Blake Griffin. Any chance that I know he's effectively retired, although I think unless I missed it without the retirement announcement, he hasn't been playing this year, but people expected that come the season. You just, you talk about the fact that he was here and that he did fit a little old in the tooth, as you said, but or long in the tooth, but he does sort of scream like PJ Brown, right? Like, one of those types of guys comes in late, get you over the hump, pull him off the couch, a la, the Browns and Joe Flacco. But obviously we saw it here in 08 with Cassell to an extent and Brown more fitting this description. Is Blake Griffin the type of guy Brad could call?
Yeah, I think they probably kept in contact, and I think Brad's probably told Blake, "Hey, if you ever consider a comeback, we'd love to have you." I think Blake's probably enjoying retirement life, but who knows if he got that itch, to come back and play. But and also what kind of shape he's in and what he would add to the floor. Like it would be great to have him as a leader, for him to finally get a championship ring and all that. But that would be just kind of, for him. Is he going to be that guy who can give you some quality minutes? I just think you do want a ball player, right? You don't want a guy who's kind of, I mean, now, with Blake, is the time off, has it done him wonders? Is he energetic? Is he like, hey, boy, I haven't felt this good in years because I've had 6 months off, like, but how long would it take him to get in basketball shape? I'm sure he's in great physical shape. I mean, the dude's a beast, a sort of physical maven. But you look and you saw, his legs are beat up from the years of surgeries and all that. He's not jumping over keys anymore. So, I mean, I think that's a possibility, and I think he's got a good relationship with Brad and the organization. He left on great terms. But I think the Celtics will exhaust their situation with the trade deadline. Like I said, what is Chicago going to do now that they own Zach LaVine? The one thing, guys, that we're trying to figure out is what the hell is half these teams going to do? Toronto, Atlanta, Chicago, these teams on the bubble who are, Golden State, Utah, like teams that could make a run for a play-in, but it's like, is it really worth it to go, go full bore at a playoff spot and then lose in the play-in tournament, and you've added no assets through the trade deadline. You haven't changed your roster. So there's a couple of teams. I said Toronto's a team to look out for. Atlanta, what the hell are they going to do? They're under 500. I think they're 20-27. They've won 4 in a row, and I know they come to Boston on Wednesday, so you never know. But they're a team that nobody's afraid of Atlanta. No one's fearing it. The Hawks, even though we thought in the playoffs last year when they pushed themselves to 6 games that they would take the next step. I think everybody thought, oh, Atlanta's going to be maybe a 4th or 5th seed because they got all the guys back and a full year Quinn Snyder. It ain't worked out that way. So they're a team to really look out for. And in terms of the Chicago Bulls, do the Bulls finally break this whole thing up? Do they make major deals? Do they move Alex Caruso? I think Kobe White's proven that he's going to be there for, he's a really good year. Levine's out again for the year, and what are they going to do with Vucevic and DeRozan? So there's some teams to really look out for. And in the West, I'd say Utah and Golden State. And what the heck are they going to do? And, because it's now to maybe make a decision. We're not going to we can make the play-in, but is that really worth it to gain no assets from the trade deadline?
It's funny. I find this time of year very interesting for a multitude of reasons, but this particular year I find it very interesting because if you go back to like Danny Ainge's time with the Celtics and the head of the front office, he was always big game hunting, and it always felt like he was chasing X star, Y star, Z star. And, it was always about picks and how many picks they're going to give up. Oh, Danny didn't want to give up a future pick and get us all angry and mad and all that stuff. But the information was always just kind of out there, whether it was real or not. You'd get the story later on, like, oh, here's how close they really were, et cetera, et cetera. How hard is it for you and your colleagues at this point to try and get any information out of the Brad Stevens front office? Because I feel like he moves in silence, right? Like The
Yeah, ain't
Derek White
happening.
trade is like
Br-
the biggest one of it, where like
Brad's the
nobody
opposite of Danny. Like Brad does not. You'll see Brad how he's completely behind the scenes. You don't see him at games. You don't see him on the floor. You might see him at the arena. Now he goes. Obviously, he's at every game, and you'll see him. Hey, Brad, how are you? He's kept it completely low profile at his time as general manager. So it's hard to determine. The thing that we got from his last media availability was that they might be looking for a wing, but it also could be O'Shea Brissett who fills that role. So you think that they might be looking for a wing, but it's hard to determine what the Celtics are looking for. Because I said, in that organization, everybody's tight-lipped. Austin Ames, David Lewin, all these guys, they talk, hey, how you doing? They're nice, they're friendly, but they're not letting any information go. And I think that's the way Brad wants it. Where Danny was picking up the phone, telling you what's going on. Hey, like he took a completely different approach. And there's no right approach or wrong approach to this situation. But with Brad, he's been behind the scenes, so you don't really know. But you do know that he's doing something. He's looking at somebody. He is scouting. Knows all these guys. Like, believe me, they know who they're trying to go after. Right? They're on the phone. They're working the phone. They know. It's just a matter of when will we find out who is this player? Who will come to the forefront? What team will say, okay, Boston, we're ready to will and deal with you, or is it we're taking the best offer, or we want multiple first round picks, or whose asking price is going to be reasonable? All this is going to happen over the next 72 hours because now you have a lot of teams. Guys, looking to add the Cleveland Cavaliers, the New York Knicks, the Milwaukee Bucks, all the teams in the East, Miami, the contenders, Indiana obviously added Pascal Siakam. Who's going to trade for Bruce Brown? He's sitting there in Toronto. And obviously you're competing also with the teams in the West, the Minnesotas, the Denvers, guys who just want to add one final piece because there's plenty of teams when you don't have a great team in this league. I see themselves a very good team. I don't know if they're great yet, who feel like they can win championship. I think Milwaukee says if we get it together, even all the way down to Miami says, man, we ain't worried about this regular season. Just get us in, and we'll take care of the rest like they did last year. So it's going to be a very interesting 72 hours, especially on Thursday. Who is going after what? Who decides to shut it down and start selling, and who surprisingly will be buyers?
I want to spend another minute on that. I'm glad that Ev brought it up because I do, not being a reporter, not being a newsbreaker, I do find it pretty fascinating, obviously doing what you do and what you've done so well for so long. Just the difference in these regimes is, as Ev hit on, the fact that, whether it was, and there's a lot of overlap, obviously, Brad being the head coach as long as he was, but, Brad's hiring going back to 2013, contract extensions, the promotion, obviously, to president of basketball operations with Danny leaving. So many things have happened in the shadows, in complete silence, in this, in a world, where that just does not happen anymore. Generally, it's people like you or Woj or Shams. There's a leak, there's a nugget, there's a story out there, and it seems like Brad really does. I know him personally as it relates to his own life and contract, especially with I don't know if his wife is still his agent, but that plays a role in it. Obviously, they can keep it literally in house. But he does a remarkable job of keeping everybody who works with and under him completely tight-lipped. And so does that just basically tell us that any leaks that were happening previously were either directly, anonymously, quote fingers, from Danny, or in some cases, and I don't mean from you, I mean in the aggregate, in some cases made up, or just coming from agents or executives of other teams that were dealing with the Celtics, but it was never coming from Boston?
Yeah, I would say Danny was not one of those guys who was going to have Woj and Shams on speed dial. He was not on either side in terms of those two. Those two are amazing reporters. they get it done, they're locked in. But Danny was kind of an outlier when it came to those guys and the big news breakers. Sometimes you catch Danny and he would get back to you. Danny was kind of fair to us in terms of like, I'm not going to just hand it to the two guys and then 10 minutes later go, oh yeah, it's done. And then, you're 10 minutes late still, but they think they've done you a favor, right? That's not the case. In this situation, I don't know if it's more like there's no leaks, but I think that if you probably catch the right guy at the right time, and now I'm not talking about Brad, then you could probably get something going on. And sometimes it's the player himself, it's the agent, it is an agent wanting to pay back a reporter for a previous story, or and now in our business, guys, it's about if you have 2 million Twitter followers and I have 52,000, who are you going to call first? Like if you want to get the news out, or sometimes people are like, I don't care how many, like you worked hard for this. That doesn't really happen. I think people think that the beat writers don't work hard anymore because Woj and Chance, it's a lot going on. And it is as much as it is their amazing work and their hard work and living on the phone, like it's a dedicated situation. I mean, you guys are, I would assume, either married or with somebody or in a relationship or whatever you have. And, your wife does not want to look at you, or spouse or mate look at you always answering work calls. It's just not cute, right? It's not cute on Valentine's dinner when you're I gotta take this. Like that ain't gonna score points at home. Sometimes you have to break away. You've got to put the phone away. My wife jumps on me about, look, why are you always on Twitter? Because that's where everything is at. She doesn't. I have to explain to her how much Twitter and X now is a common source of news and information. So she asked that because she's not a big Twitter. She's on Twitter, but she's not big on her X. But she had I'd explain that to her. So I just think it's sometimes good luck, hard work, and sometimes you're following. If like if I want to get some news out, I'm gonna reach to the guy with 6 million followers. I'm not going to reach to the guy with 60,000. It's just, and as much as that guy with 60,000 worked just as hard, and I might like him, and he might be a good guy. So sometimes it's just popularity, politics, favoritism, all of the above that go into this game. And I would like viewers and listeners to understand that it's not like, oh, y'all don't work hard. They work like we work hard. Those guys, the Shans and the Wojs, the pros of this business will work very hard too. Sometimes it's the outlet you work for. I work for a newspaper. That's old news now, right? I mean, newspapers are, no one gets it delivered. So it's basically a website. And so it's, people have to decide, I really want that in the Globe. Now, let's say there's a story about Jalen's going to the crime bill, right? The he spoke on about the 18 the age bill, when it was crime, where now you could be 20 and not 18, where you're not getting kids who really made bad mistakes. Like that's something that's, I think, let's say his people say that's the Globe, right? That's a Boston story. That's a good story that we want to read thick, we stick our teeth into. Jalen signing his extension is not maybe what the Globe, what I'm saying? Like that's ESPN, that's Yahoo, that's The Athletic, that's a big conglomerate, that's CBS Sports, what I'm saying? So that's kind of what we compete with. And I get it. Like, it's not fair. And I don't think everybody knows life isn't fair. So you're not asking for fair, you're asking for a shot. But that's kind of how this business goes now. Sometimes you gotta just take an L. Sometimes you just have to call the agent. And the agent's like, "Oh, I meant to call you," or "Oh yeah, my guy signed. It's official." Thanks, because I've been calling you the last 3 weeks about this, and and we've been talking, but now suddenly you didn't answer your phone for another 10 minutes after it. You know, things like that. It's a frustrating business. When you do break something or have something, it's very rewarding. And you sometimes have to understand the politics of the business, especially with social media followers, especially with certain conglomerates that cover the league that are bigger than, let's say, where I work for.
Kaufman,
I'm
you ever
going way
look
off
at
the rails
you ever look
when we
at
get to that.
Sham's schedule, Kaufman?
What's that?
You looked at Sham's like schedule before. He's talked about this.
No.
I would not want to be Shams. I'm going to be honest with you. Dad does not seem like everybody's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to be like the newsbreaker? No, it wouldn't. Like, no, it wouldn't. Gary just talked about it. You want to have a family? You want to have like a life outside of your work, outside of your schedule?
Yeah.
Then don't be Shams, because like he's in the car driving somewhere and he's got two phones going at the same time. Like, and that's for 17 hours a day. You can't be, you're always on call. Like no matter what you do, no matter where you are in the world, you're always on call. I value my privacy a little more than that. I wouldn't want any part of that life. I don't know if Kaufman, if you fantasize about it, I heard his schedule and was like, nah, I'm out. I'm good. Good.
No, I've read articles about those guys, Schefter, Woj, Shams. No, I mean that's like all these guys, and like Gary is, you know, just as a, I mean, you're obviously a more of a columnist than a beat writer at this stage, but still, like it is a grind, man. It is like what you do and what your colleagues do. It's different levels of grind, like you're talking about, but yeah, it is completely, I mean, totally infringes upon any sort of work-life balance, and so it's obviously on you.
But it's still exciting. I mean, the trade deadline coming up, you can't wait. It's your opportunity, however small it might be, 1 in 100, 1 in 10, to maybe break something, to call the right guy at the right time, or just hear that tip. So it's still a challenge. I just feel like in our business, if you are okay getting your ass beat all the time, it's not the way it should be. You should be pissed. Even it's Woj and Shams. Even, you know, you cannot turn around and be okay being freaking Randall Tex Cobb. Look that up, kids, if you don't know who that is, or being Glass Joe. Like you can literally can't get, you know, you're getting your head beat in. That's not, you want to be, you want to be mad if it's not bringing another story, advancing the story, getting the player on the record for the first time, or whatever, something that makes it fresh and new. That's the challenge of this job. And if you're not upset sometimes, or most of the time, that you're not, that the guys are getting stories and it relates to your beat or your job, I don't know if you should be here. You can't be like, oh, that's just the way, you know, hey, and that, like, no, you should be pissed, even though it's not much you can do about it. Sometimes you can't do nothing about it, but sometimes you're still okay to be pissed. It's just like, you know, I mean, the Patriots lost 13 games and they were not favored to win any of them, but they were still pissed after they lost, right? Like, right. Were they 4-13 this year? So yeah, like, you know, it's just like walking off the field after a game at Miami and being like, oh, well, they were just better. Like, what are we going to do? Let's go home. I'm hungry. Like, no, you should be pissed, you know, because you're a competitor. This is a competitive business. This is the one business other than sports and probably, you know, obviously other businesses where you're competing with other companies and comp sales and all that, where you compete. You know, I'm still a competitor. You know, I like getting stuff first. I like the nuggets. So it should burn you up. And it doesn't make you mad at your competition. It doesn't make you resent them. You just like, okay, I got to be better. I got to make an extra call. I got to get that extra source. Or I got to talk to an agent and say, hey man, like, I'm part of this too. Like, you know, because they might not think, oh, I didn't think of putting you on the phone list. Okay, like, really, you didn't? Some of these guys are, you know, play dumb, but you know, you got to do your best. And you know, when you are just like, you don't care about getting beat, it might be time to take a step back and maybe do more features or maybe other things that, like, you're not, you know, competition doesn't matter. You're like, I'm good. Like, maybe it's time to do something different. Because I said, I'm still a competitor. I still like to compete. I still get mad if I see Woj or Shane. Oh, well, that's it. they're just gonna whip my ass. Well, like, no, hell no. Like, it's just sorry, that's just not how I look at it. I applaud those guys, appreciate those guys. I know those guys, there's mutual respect there. So it's not like a situation where I resent them, but in all honesty, shit, to my language, like, I want to win too.
Yeah. We'll circle back on the C's, but just because we've gone down this rabbit hole, I'm curious.
I'm gonna check on my chicken.
Yeah.
All right. Can we take a quick break?
Yeah, you check on that. We're gonna shout out our sponsor real quick.
Okay.
Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Do you? I know you're a West Coast guy, at least in terms of your Dodgers fandom. I don't know that you have any Niners fandom. Where?
No, absolutely not.
Are perfect. So
Oh,
what?
God, no. I grew up a Rams fan. No,
I was
I am
going to say
not.
LA Rams. Got to be LA.
Yeah, I am not a 49ers fan. No, I have friends who are 49ers fans. Absolutely not. I remember, like, when I was like 19 years old, my stepfather, for reasons I'll never know, got me like literally a 49ers sweater. like I never, that thing never saw the light of day for like Christmas. I just he's like, oh, my stepson likes sports. Looks cool. What? Never.
I get the colors.
I never wore that thing. No.
So did you stay loyal to the Rams when they left LA?
No. Oh no. I didn't have a football team for 21 years, I think, right? They moved back in 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. 95 to 17, I was like the man without a team. Like, I kind of like the Patriots. I picked those up, like, but I was not. Yeah, I loved NFL football, but I had no team.
Gotcha.
That's tough.
But now it is firmly Rams again because they're back in.
Yeah, I mean, I still like the Patriots are cool. Like, I've learned to like those because I know how important it is to this area. And but the Rams, yeah, I mean, I didn't get any Super Bowl stuff. I still think I'm gonna get me a Super Bowl t-shirt from 2 years ago. Just yeah. But yeah, my fandom isn't as big as it was. But yeah, I mean, I was disappointed when they lost to Detroit in the playoffs, and I hope that they make the moves to get to that next level. But yeah, I'm not like diehard. I said the Dodgers are probably the only team that I'm just like, that's my team. The Rams are, but not as much. And then Cal, like my alma mater, is where I live and die.
So who do you think wins this Super Bowl since there's no fandom to it?
I like Kansas City, to be honest. I don't know why. I just think they're so poised and savvy. I think it's a dynasty. I just can't bet against Mahomes. They just figured out a way to kind of manhandle Baltimore, and Baltimore made all these mistakes, and everybody thought Baltimore's a great team, and they're gonna, slice through Kansas City. They won at Buffalo. I mean, all these times you say, like, they're dead or they're dying or they're going to get, put out by another rising team, or it's Buffalo's year. That's all we heard. It's Buffalo's year. Then they kind of, skidded, and then they came back, and it's no, Buffalo's back. And then Baltimore, oh, no, this best Baltimore team since the 01 team that won the Super Bowl, like, or even the one that, won the Super Bowl and beat San Francisco several years ago with Kaepernick. I mean, you thought, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, why when they play Kansas City do they just fall over themselves? I don't get it. And it just as much as you can put all the McCaffrey and Purdy and Brandon Ayuk and Debo and Kittle and all these guys, you're like, oh, what a fantastic and a good defense with the great linebackers and all that. They get on the field against the Chiefs and just something happens. I just think the Chiefs just have it. They got it, and that's hard to shake.
Well, they got that Patriots thing, and not present day, but for 2 decades. That's without a doubt. We can go on and on this. Speaking of going on and on, I am gonna belabor the topic that we were talking about before our break with one more question. Then we'll take it back to Marcus Smart for anyone that's bored of this journalism talk. But I am curious because we were talking so much about obviously breaking stories and the work that goes into it, the pride that comes out of it. What is the most significant story you've ever broken? And I phrase it that way because I don't necessarily mean the biggest in terms of notoriety, maybe just the one you're most proud of. What is the one that really stands out to you?
Okay. So when I was living in Seattle and covering the Sonics, I got a random call from a woman who said that she had been conned. Evan, you know the story?
No, I just love it where we're already going. This is amazing.
Okay.
I just
Okay.
I got
Damn, Evan, you read the story already? I'm impressed.
No.
You're better than Missoula. You're better than Missoula pulling out my 2008 story.
No, I can't. I wish.
Man, what's going on?
He's on you, man. I enjoyed that back and forth.
I enjoy all of them.
Yeah.
They're fun, I love Joe, honestly.
Yeah.
Great. I like Joe a lot. So this woman randomly called me in the office and said, I have been conned by a man who is impersonating an NBA player, former NBA player who is still the Orlando Magic's TV commentator named Jeff Turner, who played on the 84 Olympic team. He played at Vanderbilt. He played like 12 years in the league. And if you watch a Magic game on League Pass, he is their TV commentator, right? 6'8" guy. I was puzzled by, so she told me the whole story, that this guy said he was a scout and literally got her, like chipped her out of money, faked like a relationship with her, had all this, had sex with her, all this stuff, man. So I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? So she gives me the guy's name. I reach out to the guy and he's like, yeah, I did it. I just wanted to get laid. Like, I just wanted to, that was it. Like, I did, yes. And literally, it was a front page story of this guy admitting he literally lived in Somerville. So I'm in Seattle. I had no idea what a Somerville was. He lived in Somerville and he faked like he was an NBA scout. He said his name was Jeff Turner and he conned this woman out of money, relationship, all that. And he freely admitted it. And so his picture was on the cover of the paper. Oh my gosh. It was such that was one of the more amazing stories I've ever worked on, where he just freely admitted it. He did not deny it. He just basically said, yeah, I'm a sleaze bag. Like, I'm just not, shoot me. Like, yeah, I lied. And I had to talk to Jeff Turner, who was like, and then because they got NBA security involved. Yeah. Like, it was an amazing story of this guy. I can't remember his name. I'd have to find his name. And this woman who called me randomly, and, because I think what happened was a local Boston paper did like a feature, because this guy actually did play basketball, not in the NBA, but they did like a feature on him or whatever. And he said he was a scout, but he used his real name. So it was all crazy. And it was an A1 on the front page of the paper. And it was all about basically don't get conned. This guy lied. And the guy was 6'6". He was a former, I think, a college player. I don't even know if he played D1, but he was a former athlete. He resembled Jeff Turner, but picked Jeff Turner and said, and if you look it up, like I said, he played at Vanderbilt. He played in the 84 Olympics team with Jordan. He was on that team, so he was a very good player. And he played 10 years in the league, and I think his last years with Orlando when they became an expansion team in '89. So yeah, like basically identity theft, con man impersonation. And the guy said, yep, I just wanted to get laid. And so I got so much reaction from like guys laughing, women saying this is horrific, guys, I gotta meet this guy. He represents all the sleaze bags of the world. Like, it was just all the reactions I got were just from this story were
That's
just
crazy.
so varied. Like, and the woman was so, she was like, thank you. And he wasn't mad at the story. I think he wanted the publicity. He probably wanted to be caught, and his picture, I had to find the story. But that was
the last time you talked to Jeff Turner about this?
I did. He was very like nonchalant about it. Like, yeah, I heard about that. He didn't say like you wrote, like he didn't.
Oh,
be like, yeah, he didn't. I literally said, Mr. Turner, I know there was a guy impersonating you or whatever. Yeah, I called security. Then I've seen him over the years, not recently if I mentioned this, but like in years after, because he's been in Orlando, obviously the TV guy for a long time, and he kind of was like, yeah, that was crazy, huh? Like he kind of downplayed it. I don't think it was something that a story he's wanted to touch.
I don't think you're telling that to a lot of people. Yeah, I totally agree.
That's crazy.
That was fascinating.
Yeah.
His first quote was like, yeah, I did. I just wanted to get laid. Like, that was like, oh, so just imagine the reaction from our readers when he said that on the record. He said that on the record. And it was like, basically, yep, I'm guilty of being a total jerk in a sleaze bag. Like, what are you going to do? Like, I'm not going to jail. I'm not, like, I wasn't honest. So what? Like, it was like, yikes.
Well, it's hard to go from that to Marcus Smart, but I'm going to try. Let's work some of this smart talk in before we let you go. That was good. So Smart made his return, didn't play, talked to the media, nothing but glowing things to say, as you would expect, about his time in Boston and teammates and organization, and any sort of anger or emotion in a negative way that he may have felt at the time of the trade. He certainly has either processed and moved on from, or he just completely treated it as water under the bridge. He is looking forward, and he's proud of where he is at. Maybe not with the injury and the way the team is playing, but that's a whole other thing beyond his control. He, it was great. It was, I wasn't at the game, but it was emotional to see him back. Obviously a very popular figure here. I don't think in the last 2 decades of Boston sports, you would find a more polarizing figure than Marcus Smart. I think, like maybe early Al Horford when he signed, or Tuukka Rask, guys that might somewhat be in the conversation, but Marcus really a class of his own. I mean, people really loved him and swore by him, and in this house we do not slander Marcus Smart, those things that were being sold online for a while, or you hated him and you thought he was always guilty of hero ball and doing too much and was a detriment to the team's success, and he was holding them back, and there was just no in between. There was no in between with Marcus Smart, which is really unfortunate. I think a lot of people didn't appreciate him at a baseline for what he was here and what he is. What I thought was really interesting in the article you wrote, though, and you're not the first to say it, you probably know where I'm going with this. You feel his number 36 should be retired.
Yes.
I think most people would
disagree. Believe me, I've heard on X today. Yes.
I think even people like, I am a Marcus Smart fan, supporter, and I disagree. I think a lot of people would disagree who even did love Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think it's not the longevity factor. He was here for a long time, almost a decade. I think it's ultimately, unfortunately, it just kind of comes back to he doesn't have a ring. He didn't.
Okay, Adam. He doesn't have a ring. So Rondo gets his number retired?
I don't think so.
He has a ring. He was a 4-time All-Star. 3 times he led the league in assists in Boston.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is, this is my argument. Okay, I do actually
By
think,
the way, it's a Celtics problem because
Yeah.
they have way too many numbers up
yes,
there, so it brings down the
I
threshold.
actually do think about these things before I say them to the reviewers who think I'm just coming up with
Oh,
shit.
yeah, I figured
Okay.
that. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here's my thing about Marcus Smart. You retire jerseys for various reasons: longevity, performance, championships, and the least one is culture changing. Okay. Tony Allen is getting his number retired in Memphis. Was it because he put up a bunch of points? Hell no. It's because he changed the culture and created the grindhouse culture in Memphis. He's getting appreciated for that. Now, I'm not comparing the Celtics and the Grizzlies are probably desperate to retire somebody's number, right? Because they haven't won anything. However, I do think that Smart changed the Celtics culture. And you could say that it went too far. You could say that he had too much power and leadership. But remember, there's organizations, and I said this on television, like the Detroit Pistons have not recovered from losing Chauncey, Rip, still haven't recovered 15 years later from the breakup of that team. 15 years later, they are the worst franchise in basketball. Okay? I don't think they've won a playoff series since then. Do you know how long it takes to recover when you get old? Look at the 92 Celtics and the 93 Celtics and the 96 Celtics. Look how long that took.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a similar situation was coming. Garnett and Pierce were old. Allen left. Rondo was in his prime, but probably needed to be traded because he wasn't going to play with a bunch of youngsters. And he had value around the league. And the Celtics flipped it. Danny traded it, hired Brad. Doc was like, love this, love Boston, but I'm going to LA to golf more, coach Paul, DeAndre Jordan and Griffin, and try to win another championship. So Brad chooses Smart as his first pick in 14. In a few years, they came back. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals in 18. Like, and you could credit Smart, but also Isaiah, right? And if Isaiah had played long enough, who knows what would happen with his number 4? But it didn't only, you can't retire somebody 2.5 years. But 9 years, Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time first team all defense, 4th all time in steals. It's an intangible thing. It's not necessarily numbers. So my feeling is he helped change the culture. He helped bring Celtic basketball back because you can't bet that it would have come back if he hadn't have been around. You could say, well, they would have drafted Jason and Jalen, but who was their spiritual leader? Who was their heart and soul? Who sacrificed their body? Who died on the floor? Who was ready to jump in somebody else's ass for another team? Marcus. It wasn't Jalen. It wasn't Jason. Love those guys. And if we're talking about championships, Evan, if Tatum doesn't win a title, does he still get his number retired here?
Tatum?
How long's a year?
Yes, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Because he's likely to finish as a Celtic. If he stays in Boston, he's going to be he'll approach Havlicek. Havlicek has 27,000, I want to say. Pierce is second. So how are we basing this? And I think it's time, at times, a special situation. I'm not saying anybody who played 9 years in Boston deserves their number retired. I'm saying culture changing. That's the last category. Usually it's performance, longevity, and championships. Those are the 3. 4 is a culture change. I think Marcus, for what he did, and the fact that he didn't ask out, he didn't ask to be traded, he didn't bitch and moan, he's been a total gentleman. It was an addition by subtraction. We'll find out. But I think what he gave to the organization in his 9 years, and let's be honest, Marcus is going to be one of those guys with mangled hands and all that when he's done. Like, he has given his body, and he's about to turn 30. He's only 30 to this organization. I think it's a strong consideration after all is said and done. And was it his fault they lost in the 22 finals? Like, was it all his fault?
No.
Did
They
Jason show up in that series? I love Jason. What was Jason in that series? What happened to Derek White after game one?
Yeah.
Like, well, he didn't win in 22. It wasn't Marcus against the Warriors. It was the Celtics against the Warriors. Only Jalen was good in that series.
And I'll just say this. I understand everything you said and agree largely with much of what you said. I come from it, I guess, from a place of I'm just more selective than the Celtics historically have been. For instance, like I don't think Kevin Garnett should have his number retired, and he might be my favorite Celtic ever. But for me with him, and you want to talk culture changing, my God.
That's what I'm saying. He won a title. I get it.
But he won a title, but for me, it's longevity. He wasn't here long enough. Smart, he's got the years. He doesn't have the title. You know what I mean? So it's this combination.
What about Ray Allen?
No,
because he wasn't here long enough. The 5 years.
Yeah,
but he won a title and went to a game 7 of another.
Right.
Because if the argument is he didn't win, Marcus ain't won no titles, then we should scowl Gabe Pruitt, Leon Poe, all should be in their name in the rack if that's what we're doing. Because this organization, Adam, has won 1 title in 38 years.
Right.
So what we're doing is we're just saying like, F everything, you got to win a title. And I think that was the level. But remember, in the 60s, I'm not taking anything away from those great players in the 60s, but there was Don Nelson, guys who were just guys who came off the bench and those got their numbers retired.
Right.
Like
but that's
almost everybody did.
Way.
Like everybody. And was it overkill? All those guys are mostly in the Hall of Fame. So no, really. Casey Jones is a coach. Sam Jones was a tremendous player. I mean, I'm talking about Russell and Cousy. That's a given, right? Bill Sharman. Ed McCauley got his number retired, and he did not win a championship in Boston. He got traded for Russell. Before he was a great player. Like, so I don't know what scale we're doing this on now. Is it overkill? Like, I think some of the newer fans and some of the fans are like, yeah, we got too many numbers retired anyway, so we got to draw the line and cut this off because it's getting ridiculous. Like, okay, that's cool. So it's only like championships and that's it. Like, I don't like, do the Celtics need to adjust how they retire numbers? Or because obviously Pierce was a given.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Allen is a bubble and he's a Hall of Fame player. Rondo's an interesting case. 9 years, 4 All-Stars, 3 times led the league in assists, a championship in a game 7. And he was a motherfucker in those playoff series against Miami.
Yeah.
Right?
He was.
Like Rondo was a bad man. Okay. But he didn't leave. Like, he was not a popular player. Rondo was moody. I had my issues with Rajon Rondo personally, without question.
Connect 4? Was that the problem?
Yeah, but exactly. I didn't be what my ass Connect 4. But you cannot argue against production. So the question is, should we review how we assess jersey retirements in Boston? Or is it just championship or bust? If that's the case, fine. Because if Tatum doesn't win one, then we don't retire 0. If it's about championships. And I'm not saying, I'm sure Jason will win 1 or 2, and Jalen, because Jalen's going to be right behind him. If both of them win a title here, they're both getting their numbers retired. We know that, right?
Yeah,
okay. We know that. So with Marcus, I don't want to blame him. Well, he didn't win it all. 5 Eastern Conference championships. And I can't blame him for some plays he made in game 7 last year against Miami. But I can also blame like shooting too many fucking threes, excuse my language, damn threes, and like settling and then just not having the mental edge to win that game when you knew Miami was going to play their ass off. And Miami showed up and the Celtics thought that they were done and they weren't. Like, that's a lot. I don't know if you put all that on Marcus. Now, for me, I think it's an argument. I'm not like, oh my God, if they don't retire, this is terrible. they did him as just justice. I just think for the culture changing that he did and for what he gave to the organization, I watched him for 9 years, saw him hit 11 threes in a game at Cleveland. I saw him do the stuff as, you call it hero ball, Evan, and I could agree. It got maybe a little overboard. But I saw him damn near fight Jaylen Brown in the bubble. I saw him want to win so badly. I saw him, that man, dye his hair green. I saw that man live to be a Celtic. That's got to mean something other than, see you, Marcus, enjoy Memphis because we're going to win a title without you. Like, all, it's like all those people that cheered him last night have all flipped the script and come at me on X today. Like, damn, I thought Marcus was loved, but not that loved, huh? Because I'm getting mad insults and all that. My intelligence, I'm idiot. I'm drug tested, like, which is great. That's okay. Like, I think it's a little much, but to me, like, it's something you wouldn't just absolutely think, oh, hell no. Like, what? Dennis Johnson got his number retired. Like, I love DJ. I'm a black dude with freckles. Okay. I was told growing up I look like Dennis Johnson. So I love DJ. But like I'm saying, he helped with the 2 championships. So that gets him in. And he's in the Hall of Fame. And I'm not saying Marcus should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying what he did in the 9 years is a really unusual circumstance. And if you guys can name someone who put 9+ years in Boston that's not retired or not in the Hall, that has a career impact like Marcus in Boston and with the Celtics, I'd like to know who that is.
I have like I can like both sides of this. Like, I think on the one hand, I love the fact that you brought up, like, look at Detroit and like they just haven't recovered, right? It took Milwaukee like 40 years to find the next star for them. Like, this is something that normally just dies. And what I think is interesting, I wouldn't call it a culture change. I would just call it a continuation of like the KG hard ass. Like, he just passed. Look, they had that great moment in that Brooklyn game where KG and Marcus like found each other for the first time, and they were diving after a loose ball on like the right sideline, and they got, I think Marcus got up first and KG like dapped him on the way up, like, hey man, like, good play, love that. Like, it was awesome, right?
Yeah.
He carried that torch on, and you could argue that that's maybe even harder to do when you have to like come after great guys like KG, Pierce, and Allen, who just had a bunch of battles and huge games for a good stretch of NBA history. Again, the flip side of that is when you look at Marcus Smart's time, he's got 1 foot in a team I would say is probably defined mostly by Isaiah Thomas, and then a team mostly defined by Jaylen and Jason.
Yeah.
So like, he's not the first guy you think of, maybe, when you think about those teams. And the thing that hurts is like
Jonathan and Max and like there's
that's
Parrish, McHale, and Bird, and 2 other guys from that team had their numbers retired.
That's fair.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, like, and I'm in all championships. So your argument, the trump card from any Celtic, well, they won championships. I get it, but they went to Game 6 in 22. They went to Game 7 in a couple Eastern Conference Finals. Like, and to say, Marcus, you don't deserve it because of that. Now will it make it look worse if the Celtics coast to the title this year without him? Maybe. I'm just saying, from what I saw, my eyes, his impact, it's worth consideration. Like, Celtic fans are like, oh, hell no. Like, I just think that's really dismissive of what his impact, what he did. Nobody said he's going to be a point guard. He became a point guard. I mean, he's got the team record for made threes in a game, as much as his 3-point shot was a damn fucking experience, a roller coaster experience. Excuse me, I'm cursing. I'm sorry. He has the team record for threes in a game. Like, Marcus improved. He became a point guard. Now, will the Celtics be better if he was here? Probably not. But you also have the development of Derek White and the addition of Kristaps Porzingis. Like, that's tough to judge, right? It's tough to judge. Oh, they're better because Derek White is a completely different player than when he arrived in Boston. And Kristaps Porzingis is a difference maker at the big that they needed for years. Let's be really honest. Jason's having a good season and Jalen's having a good season. Drew's been solid, had his moments. I wouldn't say like, oh man, Drew's just been spectacular. Like Drew's been solid. You hope that his better basketball is going to be in the playoffs, right? But you're talking about completely different Derek White. Like, man, I don't know. I mean, as I said, I can listen to arguments against it. And I wouldn't argue people down or say you're crazy. But to sit there and like, oh, hell no, that dude, like, it just completely dismisses. I've seen that dude break, sprain ankles and his hands and all that, yeah, just, I mean, come on. Like, man, I just say that dudes do stuff that was like, you know what? If you're not going to do it, I'll do it. And that, to me, that's like, to me, that says a lot.
See, this is why you listen to and watch Celtics beat. You don't get this Gary on NBC Sports Boston.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, look, I mean, I've got my opinion. Evan's got his. You've got yours. People listening, watching, they have theirs. The bottom line is only a couple opinions really matter, and that's of ownership. And Wyc Grousbeck, and this is not meant to be a dig, so I hope it's not interpreted as such. He's an emotional, sentimental guy about Celtics history. Like Kevin Garnett's number, whether or not you feel or I feel belongs up there, it's going up there. Ray Allen's might as well. Marcus Smart's absolutely might. He's ready to put Tatum and Brown up there right now, and they still haven't won and haven't been here for a decade and all that stuff. Rondo never really gets talked about. Danny Ainge at some point in time is going to go up there in some form as, for his decades of service with the Celtics and going back to player, executive, all of it. Like there are more numbers coming. They're going to need another one of those flags.
Yeah.
Start a new one pretty soon. But listen, we've kept Gary long enough, and we've interrupted dinner. Hopefully the chicken hasn't burned. But Gary,
no, it's fine. It's fine. My wife is home though, so
yeah. Well, we'll let you go work on the work-life balance then. We've enjoyed this as always, and we'll definitely do it again soon, man.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Gary Washburn, obviously of the Boston Globe, of the Big Three podcast. Make sure you check that out. Part of the CLNS Media Network. For Evan, I'm Adam. We'll talk to you again later in the week.